Okay, so there's a bunch of new folders. I downloaded packages that are freely available. There's FORST, Forced, is has these trees that are freely available, conifer trees, and anytime that you create a project in Unity, you can export it and build it out and make it available to other people as a package. So if I go to should be under assets, export package. So if I wanted to export this entire project as package, I can go ahead and do this and then make it available to people. I tried to do that, and for some reason the Cinemachine was broken, and so it didn't work. So I ended up zipping the entire project. But in general, that's how these packages are exported. And in this case, there's a package within a package. So when I go into the tree, this forced conifers, there are 3 packages in here. We're using the universal render pipeline, which is this package. So if you were to use this package, you'd have to double click that, go into conifers, double click conifers URP. If you're using the universal render pipeline, there's a high definition render pipeline version, which you would open, which I mistakenly open. So when I go to like adding a trees to my terrain, there's going to be a bunch of pink trees that I can't use because those represent the high definition trees that I mistakenly brought in. Other than that, there's these, you don't have to worry. These are just other components like wind data, just other things that make the trees function. I brought in these free grass flowers. A lot of packages will have a demo scene. So this demo scene just shows you the different flower, like a field with different flowers. And they actually have some sway to it. It's a static camera. It's just the main camera, so I can't move around or anything in it. Materials. I think I had left off this last week. There was this freely available material that I downloaded, the different images for the default base map, the metallic map, the normal map, and the height map to create this sort of fleshy looking, brain looking thing. This material I just generated, Unity generated, because I dropped a PNG onto a cube and it'll automatically generate a material. These are the different images that make up all of this material so that light is bouncing on it. This one is the one that I put the skybox in here. So this one is just built, I made this one inside of Unity and just set a red to it and use it on the spheres that are bouncing. The physics map, I pointed out that you can create different types of materials, but if it's behavioral material, like the physics in the world, then you have to choose physics material. And this one has, I called it bounce because I changed the friction to 1. So it just has a parameter of 0 to 1. I don't know if I created this in class, the prefabs folder, and put the sphere in there. So any game object that's going to be repeated in your project, it's a good idea to just make it into prefab. You can build it on the hierarchy, give it all its behaviors, everything that you want in the hierarchy. And then if you drag it into the assets folder, it'll automatically be made into a prefab, and then you can either like manually put it in or use C# to put it in. And the scenes, this is working on a demo scene. Oh, I added a title scene, and we should have plenty of time to like make that from scratch. I added a folder, scripts folder, and I added 4 scripts to it. So they're just pretty like minimal scripts to do a few different things that we'll do. What else? Settings is generated by default when you create your project. I created the skyboxes folder and added some images. These images, so I pointed out that, you can build your skybox in Photoshop and Illustrator, and depending on what you want the skybox to look like, you can make it be cohesive just by these square panels that will create an enclosed cube. So this site, there's a developer who freely creates all these different projects. I don't know, .com or net? Maybe it's net. No. I have it linked under under assets. I have it as Skybox series, no, space Skybox generator. Oh, I guess you have to include, yeah, www.tyro.net. So he has this tool, Space 3D. I think it's cool, but you can set different parameters. Remember whether you want stars, how many stars, bright stars, a sun or not, etc. And then you can randomize it so that to generate something that you want to use. Okay, that'll be so it generates a skybox for you, but you have to download. So this is a simulation of what it will look like once you have it assembled, but you have to go to each panel. Actually have it. I think it's useful. I have to look at this to name them correctly. So say I want to use this skybox. I can use this mapping to select, maybe I'll call it something that Tyro up. Actually, I don't know if they're PNGs or what they are, so I'll just leave it as that. I'll just grab 3 for the sake of. Okay. So I think they're 1024 by 1024. Yeah. So you can create a skybox by that tool, but I always appreciate programmers making freely available tools, so I point that out. But you can find skyboxes in the Unity Asset Store or any other number of sites. All right, so I'll close that out. So these are a group here that I brought in. So say, for example, if I want to, maybe I'll move these from, I'm going to take them out of the subfolder and just put them in. Get rid of this folder. Delete this. Okay, so say, for example, you create your own 1024 by 1024 series of six-sided images. A key piece is that I'm going to select all of these, and in the inspector, the main thing that I want to point out is this wrap mode. So if you create it or you download it, sometimes there'll be a theme. Am I recording? I'm recording. All right, I'm recording. Okay, there'll be a theme that shows that you're in a queue. So you want to get rid of the theme. So the way to get rid of it is to make sure to set the wrap mode to clamp. And any changes to these files, you have to hit apply, or it'll throw an error at you. So at this point, if I want to create a new skybox, I would go to create material, set it to have it be a skybox. And in this case, it's a six-sided skybox. So I have these empty textures that need to be assigned. So front, I'm just gonna grab the textures from Tyro. Right. Instead of up, it's top, and down is bottom. So now I have a skybox that I can apply to my world. So the skybox that I left here was a procedural one, which actually is saved here in the materials. So I'm going to move it from materials to skyboxes. So if we want just a blank screen, we just put a bunch of different doctors transparent or white, or you want it to be, if you use white, it's gonna be bright and white. So that would take out the black. Yeah. But it also makes the entire environment really bright. Okay. So I'll go ahead and apply this. So the skybox is, you can manipulate, change it. It's tied to the directional light. And I added a few scripts that I think are a nice example of how you can keep scripts really, really tiny, like just a couple lines, and apply them to objects at a time. And so for this, I have rotate sky, and it just rotates on one parameter. So when you make variables public in Unity, it just means they're available in the inspector. So you can try different, in this case, you can try different speeds for rotate. This is being applied to the render setting for the skybox. And it's just going to be the rotation is going to be based on this float. I'm going to So with the directional light selected, I'm going to add a component and do the search for rotate sky, which was that script. So this field is what any variable that's made public is going to create a field that you can manipulate and play with to determine if that's the value you want to work with. If you want to have a set value that isn't available here, you can have it be private. So if I test this now, we should see a rotating sphere, I think, on the X. The nice thing about public variables is that you can play with them. You can change them, manipulate them while you're testing. So let's say this, set it to 100. I'll leave it at 10. So this is only, that rotation is only being applied to the sphere. You can play with it to try to get it both on the XY coordinate. And I have another example that I'm going to apply to the actual lighting. So there's this, I included this sun control. Which has two parameters that are variables based between an array of -10 to +10 float. So sun rotation speed on the X and sun rotation on the Y. And you could apply this to anything. It doesn't have to be the sun. Game object dot transform dot rotate. Rotate. So this could be added to anything that you want revolving around. It doesn't have to be the light. But in this case, I set it up for the example to add to the directional light. So we have this directional light, which is represented here, but it really acts like a sun. And I'll add sun control. And I'll play with the parameters just to make sure we can see it. I'll go way up. So since this is being applied, I'm applying this directly to the light, and it should affect the shadows and all of the lighting in this project. If I move my gameplay panel down here and look at so the directional light is rotating on both the XY coordinate. and it's causing a change of lighting in the environment. I mean, the thing to do now would be like to try to figure out how I can coordinate my sphere rotation. I'd probably have to add Y rotation so that like right now I can see it doesn't really parallel with the movement of the shadows. So I'd try to figure that out. Okay. Um, in So the room, I deleted the terrain because I wanted to make a point of where the terrain is placed on the Y coordinate versus the cube that I had deleted, I put back as kind of a foundation. So I'm actually gonna put everything that's in this little scene inside this room. And I'll rename the cube floor and put it in there. All right, so now I'll go back to the adding a terrain. So in the hierarchy, I'm gonna right click to create a 3D object and choose terrain. And I'm gonna set this room. So I think I mentioned that terrains by default are something like 2000 meters by 2000 meters. Um, at least that's what I found as I was trying to find out. And oh wait, I want the player rig too. I'm gonna put these in the center of my, approximately the center of the space. So I'm thinking if I want to use the terrain, I want to create like a, I don't know, cabin or something, some sort of shelter, and then create mountains and create forests and create layers. And I don't want the player being able to like fall off into space. So maybe I'll create like really steep mountains to sort of create a border or like a wall. Um, so getting back to the terrain, um, we looked at this paint terrain. There's paint terrain, and there's a bunch of options to set heights, paint holes, raise or lower terrain, stamp terrain, smooth height, paint textures. And we did the raise or lower. So I'm just gonna go ahead and um, set a large brush size with a high opacity. So the opacity pertains to the height. And so There's also a tool to smooth this out. So it's not quite as plateaued. And closer to the player, I'll add some much shorter, some little hills or I point out that you can lock whatever you're working on, you can lock it so you only work on that thing without worrying about messing anything else up. All right. See what that looks like. There should be little hills. Oh yeah. I'm gonna put this back up here and maximize it so you can see what I'm working on. Last week I mentioned that you can add layers to your terrain. Um, so if I switch to paint textures and I'm gonna edit terrain layers and add, I'm gonna create a terrain layer. I'll start with, it makes sense to maybe start with earth or grass. Yeah, maybe I'll start with, what's that? Gore. So this is, I threw this on there before. And this time I'll give it a little bit of depth by adding a normal map. Oh, this is a weird thing. So when you create a new layer, it adds it to whatever folder you're inside of. So I created this new terrain layer and I was inside my script, so went ahead and added that, which I don't want it there. Call it brains and move it. I'll put it in my terrains. Um, so in that I downloaded from textures.com or something like that. So I'm just gonna add the normal map. Um, all right, so we've got some. I tried adding one of the some of the other maps because I'm not familiar with what they call the mask map, and it really freaked out. Like actually, it's as long as it doesn't break my computer. Um, So this mask map, I'm just gonna add like the metallic map. Anyway, it doesn't, this isn't probably not the effect you want, but I was fascinated by what it did. The way light bounces off of it. So it seems like anything that's used for like a height map is gonna, in the terrain, is gonna cause um this weird, more fun when there's height, like the sun bouncing off of it. Okay. Um, so I'm just gonna get rid of that because my computer gets a lot slower. Okay, so say I want to add, I downloaded grass, so I'll create a layer. Um, and as long as it's selected, I don't know if this has, doesn't have a bump map, so I'm just gonna use it as is. I deleted. So when you're ready to paint, just make sure to select your new layer. Um, I'll name it in the assets. And mm, okay, so I should see both grass unless I cross over the hill. Yeah, go for it. No worries. Bye. Okay, uh, so anyway, this is what adding layers looks like, and you know, so you can think of like, okay, if I wanted to add some snow to little hilltops, I did download that, so I'll create a layer called snow. And this is from the free snow assets. I'll go with the lighter one and add a bump map for that. So in this case, I'm going to want my brush to be a lot smaller, not as heavy, and I'll switch. A little more opacity than that. All right, so if I test this, so the opacity affects the denseness. So I had it pretty low, which is why I think anyway. Is that any questions? Is that
And also like paint actually grass leaves.
yeah, so that would be in details. So if I pause this, let's see, that's paint terrain. Actually, before leaves, I'm gonna put some trees down. So click to paint trees, hold shift and click to erase trees. Hold control and click to erase only trees of the selected type. So I need to add my trees. So once again, I'll edit trees, add tree, and I downloaded those conifer trees and I accidentally downloaded the HDR. So the HDR ones are the pink ones that aren't available, but these other ones that are kind of gray looking are available. So I'll add those. And there's a bunch of settings, brush size, tree density, tree height, all of these settings you can play with. I'm going to bring down the density because why don't I see them? Oh, they're there.
She's kind of chooses randomly where to put them.
No, I'm brushing them. I think it's Zoom because I'm recording it. I think my computer is just kind of slow because
Within the brush. It kind of decides. Like within the
well,
circle of the brush, it puts like a certain number, less if it's less density. Right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
it kind of decides.
Yeah, it is relatively random. I'm gonna erase some of these because it's like way too many. Is it shift click? All right, I'm just gonna bring down the density. So I'm just doing one click and you can see, but you're right, it's pretty randomized.
Does this have like, like that open video game, something like that, and how the developers actually move this sort of thing with the-
Well, you can do it entirely scripted, but this is a more accessible way of doing it. Yeah. Um,
With drinks, you don't have it too loud, or anything, colliders or anything.
they, that's in these trees, when I was testing them, you can just walk through them, which so there should be a parameter because so these are scripted to react to wind. There's they're built, they were built for by Unity and should have a bunch of behaviors. But when I was testing these, see, like right now, I don't even see when I was trying it earlier, they were actually like swaying to the wind. But I did notice that you could just walk through them, which I think.
But I think that the ground, like the ground level, that already.
Oh no, I can't walk through them like that. No, they're built for the terrain. This is part of the terrain tool.
The trees, they're not all the same, right, all the time?
No, there's variations. Yeah, I get shoved over, so there is some sort of collision. All right. I don't know whether we're in what. Doesn't matter. You can also, with the terrain tool, you can create wind element. Let's probably, I don't remember where that was. All right, I'll jump to grass and flowers. So the fourth one here is paint details. You have the same brush size, opacity, this target strength I'd have to play with, but we have to edit the details. So we have to add grass texture in this case. And I'm just going to type in flower. So this is from a free asset. I'll choose these red ones and add them. So I noticed that the flowers, they're not specific to the terrain. So if I just start adding flowers, they're being added everywhere. Um, why not? I don't know if my computer's unhappy or if there's only specific brushes. Shouldn't matter. All right, well, I added some flowers. So these sway. I don't know why. Um, Oh, you're right. They're taller than the foundation. Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you pointed, yeah. All right. Um, okay. Um, what are the other options here? Create neighbor terrain. Not gonna do that. Paint terrain, paint trees, paint details, terrain settings. So here there's wind settings for grass. I'm pretty sure. Speed. Oh, so you can change. No, that's must. Um, so this has a base map distance of 1,000 meters. Anyway, all of these things you could play with, but I'm gonna try seeing what the wind speed, changing this. Oh yeah, they're a lot more extreme. But you can also, there's a way to, it's affecting the flowers, but not the trees. Um, what I'm looking for is to set up wind areas, but I don't remember where that's located. Anyway, there's a way to change the direction of the wind and it'll affect the trees. Um, okay, uh, I'll leave it at that because so the other thing I'd prepared was create a title scene and then from the title scene going to your main scene. Um, so I'm gonna try to do this from scratch. I'm gonna go to assets and we're going to scenes. I already have a sample title scene, so I'll create a new scene and call it demo title. Um, all right. Okay, so the main thing here is imagining that you can create a scene that's entirely 3D world and create a UI, but I'm gonna do something simpler, which is just think of like a flattened screen space that you can add a title and images, etc. So in the hierarchy, I'm gonna go to UI and create a canvas. And I will add to the canvas a few things, such as an image. I'll just have it be a black. So in the canvas inspector under render mode, there's screen space overlay, there's screen space camera, and there's world space. So an overlay, if you wanted to like create a menu or like have a 2D element in your world that people can click on and it presents a menu, then you would want to use screen space overlay. In this case, I'm going to use screen space camera. So the camera just captures this canvas. And then world space is if you want to create a UI that exists in the 3D world. So screen space camera, and it's going to be the main camera. So yeah, it needs to know what camera it is. And then the image, I'm just gonna take over the entire. So this rectangle represents the entire screen, regardless of what the end screen might be. And to this canvas, I'm going to add a text. Call it title. Whoa. Oh, wait, wow. Right. Oh. Okay. I'll just type in enter my world. And you can import fonts and choose whatever font you want. This is just the default fonts. So oh, mm, all right, and I'm gonna add a button. UI. So the button comes with a couple pieces. There's the button object itself, and then the text that's in it. So call this enter. Maybe I'll change the color. And The button comes with a bunch of properties like the default color, the highlighted color, the press color, although now that I used red, I guess I'll make this green. Okay, so the button's going to depend on an event system. The world has to recognize when you're interacting with it or when your users interacting with it. Let's see what happens if I test it. All right. No script is added or anything, so why is it? I shouldn't be able to see any of the, let's see. Screen space camera. Huh. I was hoping to just see black space and not the horizon. All right, so I'm just going to Skybox and changing the rendering to just a black background. Okay, that's more what I wanted. So I didn't add an event system, like it, because I added a button that has mouse interaction, it automatically created an event system. You can always ahead of time go to the hierarchy, right click, and is it in the UI? Yeah, in the UI, add an event system. By default, it'll create it for you, just like when I added a PNG to a box, it generated a material. So it's very forgiving. Okay, so there's a couple of scripts that, two more scripts that I added in here. One is change scene and load level after time. So change scene, I'll add to the button so that it will, in this case, it's gonna wait for, I have to request button change scene, and then it's gonna want a string name for what scene it wants to go to. And I can have it be on click because it's a button, but I could add this to other types of like a portal or another game that has a collider, game object that has a collider to switch scenes if I wanted to create something like a portal. So there's a built-in scene manager, and that's the next step. I should point out. So okay, so under file, there's build profiles. And I already added my demo scene to this. So any scene that you want to be part of your project has to exist in the build profiles. This scene list is basically kind of like your scene manager. If you're trying to go to a scene and it's not added in here, then it's not going to work. So for example, there's let's remove the demo scene. So at any point, whatever scene you're working on, you can just click add open scene. But right now, if I have just a title scene, and if I add my change scene to my button, so I dragged it into it, but if I want, you, instead of dragging it onto it, you can add component, and I'll add change scene. So now it has this script tied to it. And because it's a button, it has this on-click event. So runtime only, on-click, and it needs to know. So this is something that I find not very intuitive about Unity, is that if you want an object to be interactive in some way, when you add the script to it, then you kind of have to direct the application to that same object for it to execute whatever script you're asking it to do. So I'm going to turn off this. I forgot I had this. Okay, so I want to use the script I've added to this button called change scene. So I need to add the button to what can happen on runtime, because that's where the script exists. And then that script has a function. So under functions, I'm going to go to change scene, because that's the script that I'm working off. And then what I called is what I named how to use this change scene is button underscore change underscore scene. And that's a string variable. And I'm going to tell it to go to demo scene. However, I deleted the demo scene from my build. So at this point, if I test this, nothing happens. I get an error. Demo scene couldn't be loaded because it has not been added to the active build profile or shared scene list, or the asset bundle has not been loaded. So I need to go back to File, Build Profiles, and go to my scenes, back to that window. So now I've added my demo scene. Again, this is, you can think of it as this as like a scene manager, that anything that you want to make part of your world is going to need to go here, go in there. Oh, I know. Did it save it? Yeah. So if I test it now, it should work. Yeah. So now I've gone from the title scene into my little world, and it's missing audio. So to this enter my world, I can, to this canvas, it doesn't, the image, it's just I made a black background, but you could add, like you could create your own image in Photoshop or Illustrator or whatever and add it as a sprite. You can add more images. I go into, oh yeah, there's texture. This is in the grass flower in the, maybe I'll go. The material, no. Hmm. What is that? One 24 by 1024. It's just a PNG. I'm not sure. Maybe it needs to be a PNG, but you can create a sprite sheet and animate it and have be like a 2D animated thing. Or its own. Anyway, you can do whether it's a 3D or 2D, you can create whatever it is. You can treat the title scene any way you want. The only thing that you should keep in mind is that ideally the title scene is very low in weight. It's something that you want to like load immediately. And when the project launches, other things will be preloading in the background. What else?